She wore the habit of a saint, but beneath the layers of black wool, she was hiding a secret that was slowly eating her alive. To the world, she was the perfect bride of Christ. She woke before dawn. She scrubbed the floors until her knees bruised. She chanted the Psalms with a voice that didn't tremble. But inside the sanctuary of her own mind, there was only a terrifying, echoing silence. Imagine being married to someone you love more than anything in the universe, but for 30 years, they never speak to you. Not once. You write them letters and they disappear. You cry out their name, and the only thing that answers is the echo of your own voice. That was her reality. She was convinced that God had not just left the building. He had left her. And worse, she believed it was her fault. This isn't just a story about a nun having a bad day. This is a forensic investigation into the darkest corner of the human spirit. The feeling of absolute, crushing unworthiness. And it's the story of the day she walked into a confessional booth with a man who could supposedly smell sin on a person's skin. Padre Pio. She went in expecting judgment. She went in expecting to be exposed as the fraud she felt she was. But what happened behind that wooden grill didn't just save her vocation. It shattered everything we think we know about what it means to be good. Let's unpack the psychology of this woman. We don't know her name, which makes her every woman, every man who has ever felt like an imposter. In the convent, she was a machine of efficiency. The other sisters looked at her and saw a pillar of strength. They saw a woman who had it all figured out. But this is the danger of the exterior. If you could peel back her ribs and look at her soul, you would see a scorched earth. The mystics call this the dark night of the soul, but that sounds too poetic. It feels like emotional asphyxiation. Every time she knelt in the chapel, she didn't feel the warm embrace of the Holy Spirit. She felt cold stone and empty air. She watched the other nuns crying tears of joy during adoration, talking about the sweetness of the Lord. And she felt like an alien species, a monster. The logic in her brain was brutal and linear. God is love. I feel no love. Therefore, God is not with me. Therefore, I am rejected. She carried this heavy, invisible lead weight of shame for decades. She wasn't an atheist. She was something much more tragic. She was a believer who thought she was unlovable. She was doing all the right things, the prayers, the fasting, the charity, but she was doing them while holding her breath, waiting for the axe to fall. Enter Francesco Forgione, Padre Pio. By this time, the friar from San Giovanni Rotondo wasn't just a priest. He was a global phenomenon, a living paradox, a man who reportedly bore the bleeding wounds of Christ, the stigmata on his hands and feet. Skeptics called him hysterical. Believers called him a living saint. But everyone agreed on one thing: you couldn't lie to him. There were hundreds of testimonies of people walking into his confessional, trying to hide a secret affair or a stolen sum of money, only for Pio to recount the details of the sin before they even opened their mouths. He was a spiritual X-ray machine. So when the nuns' convent organized a pilgrimage to see him, she was terrified, physically sick with fear. This wasn't a vacation for her. It was a tribunal. She was convinced that this man, with his piercing eyes that seemed to look right through the physical world, would take one look at her and confirm her worst nightmare. He would say, "You are empty. You are a fake. Get out." The journey to the monastery was long. The air in San Giovanni was thick with the smell of incense, unwashed crowds, and desperation. Thousands of people, shouting, pushing, trying to touch the hem of his robe. When her turn finally came, she stepped into the confessional. The wooden door clicked shut. The darkness enveloped her. She was kneeling inches away from the man who could read souls. She could probably hear his labored breathing, maybe smell the faint, metallic scent of dried blood from his wounds. She began her routine. She started listing the safe sins. I was impatient with Sister Mary. I was distracted during Vespers. She was building a wall of minor infractions to hide the gaping hole in her chest. She wanted to get it over with, get her penance, and run. But Pio didn't speak. He didn't give her 3 Hail Marys and send her away. He waited. The silence stretched. It became heavy, suffocating. Then, he cut through her defenses with a single, laser-guided question. He didn't ask about her impatience. "My daughter, why are you trembling?" The mask cracked. The decades of composure dissolved in a second. She couldn't hold the wall up anymore. She broke down. Through tears that had been dammed up for years, she whispered the truth. I tried to believe, she choked out. But I can't feel him. I pray to a wall. I serve, but I am empty. I have been abandoned. She confessed the thing she was most ashamed of, that she felt absolutely nothing. She braced herself for the impact. She waited for the rebuke. But here is where the script flips. Here is the twist that makes this story violent in its mercy. Padre Pio didn't scold her. He didn't tell her to pray harder. He reportedly softened his voice, piercing through the grill with an intensity that stopped her tears cold. "My daughter," he said, "you have been terribly deceived." He explained that she had the entire equation backward. She was judging her faith by her feelings, but God was judging her faith by her will. "You think you are abandoned because you do not feel the sugar of consolation?" he asked. "Listen to me. To serve God when you feel like you are in heaven is easy. Even a child can do that. But to serve God when you feel like you are in hell, to pray when your mouth tastes like dust, to love when you feel no love in return?" He paused, letting the weight of the words settle. "That is not rejection, my child. That is trust. That is the purest gold." He told her that her spiritual dryness wasn't a punishment for her sins. It was a security clearance. God had trusted her enough to withhold the candy, to see if she would still eat the vegetables. He revealed that her ability to keep showing up, day after day, year after year, without a single dopamine hit of spiritual good feelings, was actually a sign of massive spiritual strength. She wasn't a failure. She was an elite athlete of the soul, running a marathon with weights on her ankles. Then he delivered the final blow to her ego, the good kind of blow. He leaned in and said, "You did not reject God. You rejected yourself. You decided you weren't worthy, and you called it humility. But it was pride. You wanted to feel holy so you could feel good about you. God took away the feeling so you would learn to love him for him, not for how he makes you feel." In that tiny dark box, the world turned right side up. The nun realized her abandonment was actually intimacy. The silence wasn't God ignoring her. It was God listening so intently he didn't want to interrupt. She walked out of that confessional not with a sudden rush of emotion. She might have still felt dry, but with a new operating system. She understood that feelings are just weather. Faith is the architecture that stands regardless of the storm. We live in a world that is obsessed with the vibe. If it doesn't feel good, it's not real. If the relationship gets boring, we leave. If the job gets hard, we quit. If the prayer feels dry, we stop. This story is a slap in the face to that fragility. It demands we look at our own lives. Where are you giving up because the feeling is gone? Where are you confusing silence with absence? Padre Pio saw the soul of a nun who doubted God, and he didn't see a heretic. He saw a warrior who was fighting in the dark. So if you are currently walking through your own dark hallway, if you feel unseen, unheard, and unloved, keep walking. The darkness isn't a dead end, it's a tunnel, and the only way out is through.